What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing on the 71 El Camino. Last time I was at the shop, we got all the disassembly done, so the engine's out, the trans is out, the rear end's out as well. So we've kind of got a decision to make today. Are we going to go just put the engine in first, maybe get a little better weight distribution on the rack, or are we just going to go kind of in reverse order that we went on disassembly and start with the rear axle, and then hit the trans, then the engine. So I haven't decided yet. We're going to get to the shop and see Bill. If we do decide to do the engine today, that means we're going to unwrap it. I'm going to have to get some stuff off the old 350 and transfer it over, like the timing cover and the oil pan. I'll probably have to polish those up first before they go on. But yeah, let's go see Bill, and we'll see what we're going to do today. Alrighty, everyone, we got a game plan in place here. I got the old 350 kind of blocked up. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap the new 383. I'm not going to be able to do it on camera just because it's there's a bunch of stuff in here that's just loose, so I got to be careful with it. But we're going to go ahead and get this unwrapped, and we're going to get it on the engine stand so then we can see what we're going to have to take off here. Definitely the flywheel, oil pan, and the timing cover here, but I don't think we have a puller for this balancer right now, so we'll have to figure that out. But like I said, yeah, we're gonna have to polish those things up before we get them on here. While I'm doing that, Bill is gonna tackle the front suspension here. We might be able to get that in tonight, but we're gonna have to do a bit of modification on them because you can see the bottom of this spring here doesn't, let me see if I can show you, can't get it to go through here either way without trimming right here, and we don't want to go into these nuts at all. So we're gonna go ahead, Bill's gonna just take his snap ring pliers and get this out. We're gonna slide this in, and then we'll just re-slide this mount through. So yeah, that's our plan for today. Right now I'm gonna get started, and I'll check in with you soon.
You know, we got all kinds of stuff going on here, and over here we got Jack getting the harmonic balancer pressed off. Yeah, trying. We got old motor sitting up on the cherry picker trying to take the peripherals off of it. Then over here, oh, we got the new motor. Oh yeah. Little lighter, aluminum heads. A little bit bigger. It's a 383 stroker, small block. And right now, yeah, we're working on the older cars. Everybody's like, it's okay, you know, older cars. Just wait. We got some really cool stuff up and coming in the near future here. A lot of mixes, C4s, C5s, C6, C7 vets. Get into doing the performances, the blowers, the superchargers. Just a all-around eclectic mix.
Alrighty, everyone, this motor is pretty much almost torn down to where we need it. Timing cover, the balancer's off, we were able to get that off. The oil pan, coolant temp sensor there. The adapter for the oil filter is out, flywheel is off, and the fuel pump is off, the mechanical fuel pump. All that's going to get cleaned up, replaced if needed, but most likely cleaned up, put on here. And while I was doing that, Bill was making progress on these control arms here. Had to get a little fancy with them to make them work, but they are in there, or well, one of them is. So we just got to get this bolted up. We got to replace that upper arm up there first. But other than that, we're gonna finish up this suspension hopefully, then hopefully we'll be able to get that engine put together there, and we'll be rocking and rolling. So stay tuned.
All right, guys. We kind of saved you a little bit of the boring information stuff. Obviously, the last time you guys saw it, the rear end was still sitting in the crate, was still packaged up. We got it out of the crate. It's unpackaged. We use ratchet straps on the car to lift it up. Sometimes you don't have a couple people doing it, so you need to try to do it by yourself. And the easiest way to do it is if you've got a lift like we do, but we don't have a jack big enough to hold the differential, just slide it over underneath the car, grab a couple ratchet straps, drop the car down, ratchet it underneath it so it's taut, and then if you lift the car, it lifts the differential up so you can put it on a cart or a table or whatever it is that you got to use, and then set the car back down. It gives you a firm stand on where to, so it's not rolling around or anything else like that. You can work on it. Now our differential isn't painted. The customer's bottom side of the car has been painted and undercoated and everything, so we need to make it match. So we taped off the chrome rear end cover, we taped off the pinion up front with the seal. We don't want any paint in there. Put all of our plugs in place and got everything set up. So now our next step is going to be taking and prepping the top. Once we're done painting it and everything else like that, get it ready to go back in. Then we'll be back and we'll show you step by step on how we're going to put that back in.
Right now we're back at the front of the car though. We're going to take a little break from the rear end just for right now. Goal right now is to get the rest of the control arms on. So the upper ones have to come off, and we're going to get the lower control arms on and hopefully get the new upper control arms on, so at least our front suspension is established. And then after that we'll try to get back to the rear end and get that up there for you. Alright everyone, all the control arms are on. We're going to quickly explain the process of aligning this. You can see, modern cars, they'll use like cams on the control arms to align, but for these older ones, they actually use shims, and Bill is an expert on alignments. And so he's going to explain exactly what these shims do and how adjusting them or changing, adding, or subtracting will change how the wheel sits and is aligned.
Hi everybody. We got shims on the older cars. They use shims on the really old, like mid-60s Mustangs and stuff like that. They actually use shims on the upper control arm, but that's where the spring's set. On these ones, we got shims here on the inside, forward and rearward. That adjusts your camber and your caster. Now, so you understand, camber is the top of the tire to the bottom of the tire. Whether it's in is negative and it's out is negative, is positive. Now on these older cars, because of the way the shims are set up in the control arm, depends on whether it's inside the frame rail or on top of the frame rail. That makes a big difference on how the adjustment is, because sometimes it'll be, take out of the front, add them to the back to add caster. If it's on the inside of the frame rail, it'd be reverse and go the other way. So what ultimately ends up happening, because a lot of people don't understand alignment specs and how that works, camber is the top of the tire in reference to the bottom, and if it's inward or negative as we call it in the industry, that means the top of the tire is in. Now when you adjust caster, it's kind of the same thing. Think of the reference of the lower ball joint and the upper ball joint there, or a center line in the center. Now casters would be the top or the bottom of the tire. On most cases with the new McPherson struts, it's more of the reference of where the lower ball joint is. It'll actually be negative, which will be like if somebody hit a curb, the control arm everything gets pushed back. That's classified as negative caster. And then if you're trying to go into race applications and stuff like that, you're going to want more of a positive caster, which pushes the tire forward more, either the bottom forward on a McPherson strut setup, or on these old conventional setups with the shims or cams, depending on what setup you have. By drawing that tire forward, you tighten up that steering suspension, the ergonomics in it, and it becomes a little bit tight. Now on these older cars, a lot of guys like to do factory specs, but if you want to play with it a little bit, Caster will not wear a tire out. You won't get cupping, you won't get inner edge wear or anything like that, but it will actually improve the handling of the vehicle. So when we get around to aligning this car, we're actually going to put more Caster into it to give the customer a better feel for the car. It'll respond a little bit better, but we're also going to mess around with the camber too, because he's going to be driving it. He wants to enjoy it and have fun with it, but yet doesn't want to wear the tires out. So we're going to kind of do an even balance on adding, a little bit of Caster to it, but we may put a little negative camber into it. So when you're on more of a cornering application and stuff like that, a little bit more of that tire, you can push it a little farther before you get that full footprint of that tire on the ground. So, and in correlation to that, if you have negative camber, see this is flat, this is your tire on the ground at 0 camber. Now if you go to negative, it starts pulling the tire up. As you can see, right here we've got a gap, but when you go into like faster into turns and cornering and stuff like that, because it lays the tire down more, so it gives you a little bit more speed you can go into the corner with. And that's why a lot of race cars are set up the way they are, with like -2.5 or -3 degrees camber. If you ever wonder, you see a car driving down the road and the top of the tires and you're like, hey, that looks funky. Well, some of it's for looks, but if you get into the actual aspects of why it's set up that way, if it's a lowered car or something like that, gives you better handling, responds a little bit better. And like I said, on these older cars, you add a little bit of Caster to them, you go a little bit negative Caster, and you can take an old car and actually push the limits to it and really have fun.
Alrighty, everyone, just to show you, these cars don't they don't all go super easy going together. This is the first little kind of snag we're running into. We've flipped these upper control arms a couple times and also flipped the cams, which you can't really see, but they're in the arm itself here, and they'll center it either about like ½ an inch forward or back. And just as an example, we've got this mocked up here, so if this, that's where it wants to be, right there, and you can see it's in the middle, and it is just not even close for these meeting up. Also, just a quick update, we did not have to take the bottoms of these springs out and press it through. You can see that hole down there. Apparently they're supposed to go on top just like this, and I guess this kit does have some optional stuff like a ring here and a couple other things, but we've got what we've got. So yeah, gonna keep chugging away, trying to figure out what exactly is going on here and try to get these lined up. We don't want to be just totally dead in the water tonight. I think we're gonna, while we figure that out, because we're probably gonna have to at least just order some different uppers, because the ones that I've seen online definitely much more resemble the factory control arms. They kind of dip down significantly, and the ball joint is more in the front, more in the center of the arm itself. So we're gonna go ahead, in the meantime, and just take a look here. So this is our rear axle. We've got it painted pretty much all the way. We're gonna try to get it mocked up under the car here. We're gonna see what we're gonna have to do, because we don't have an e-brake yet, so we're gonna see if we can scavenge it off the old axle there, because this has an e-brake, but the cables are 10 miles long for it, and you got to use this funky adapter. So we're gonna see what we can what we're gonna have to do there. So we're at least gonna try to get these lower arms here, connected. Maybe the upper ones, probably not the upper ones, because we're gonna have to grab. We don't have it with us right now, but we're gonna have to grab a spring compressor to get these springs up in there, because they are heavy-duty rear springs, and they have a lift block on them that was put in because the tires that the customer's running on this car are just a little bit, they're a little oversized. So without the spring blocks to lift those springs up, the tire comes in contact with the inner fender. So we can't have that. So we're gonna get this axle mocked up as best we can so that it's ready to go, and we're gonna come back with a spring compressor, and hopefully we'll also have some answers on these control arms here. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. On the bright side though, our oil pan is painted. You can see we did black and then just scraped away at the fins, so it gives it this really nice look to it, and especially with having a black block instead of the other block, which was orange, we think that's going to look really nice. All right, even through all the difficulties today, we did get a win. You see all the links are hooked up, upper and lower. We actually were able to get these springs in just with a bit of leverage, if you will. So this axle is in. Now we just gotta, try to scavenge the e-brake off this, see if that's possible.
We gotta scavenge the e-brake off it, take the rear shock bolts off, and create a vent tube hose for it.